we back for the Friday Council episode 7.
Oh,
7.
already.
Yeah, it's gone fast.
What are we talking about this time?
I think
Oh boy.
we're going to go off the idea of alone time and the importance of alone time. What does that look like? What are some examples? Yeah,
Yeah,
let's go right
the
off
value
the
of
cuff.
alone time. I think we were just chatting before we started. It's super valuable and underappreciated, and we don't spend enough time doing it, I think, in my own experience. This little anecdote for me, but during meditation, I try like once a week. I do barely any, but during one of the sits, experienced, or when I first started meditating, rather, the boredom would come back, and sitting down intentionally and like setting myself the challenge of sitting for however long, like half an hour, and sitting in that boredom made me realize, like an old friend, I was like, oh, what up, boredom? Haven't seen you in years. And really getting into the boredom as well. I'm sure we all feel boredom these days, but we can so quickly destroy it, the antidote to it with our phones or whatever. But
Yeah,
sitting with it for that long was something I hadn't done for probably since like school, since you're forced to sit somewhere and not be able to do anything.
so would you say boredom is very similar to like a distraction, or just
Well,
the lack
yeah.
of having something to do?
They're intimately related, I reckon, but the lack of having something to do, it's so valuable. Yeah, I think at the end of it, you feel like you've accomplished something sitting through that boredom, because it's tough. It's not a pleasant place to be. Yeah. But that was when I think of alone time, I think of that one example, and maybe I feel like I accomplished something, because it is difficult to sit through boredom, like it is difficult to do any physical exercise, but it was kind of a similar feeling, I've just finished some physical exercise. But how often do you guys get alone time, and do you do it intentionally?
All the time.
Yeah.
For me, yeah.
Yeah. But is it? I suppose there's a difference between alone time and quiet, like alone time intentional. So you can be alone and surrounded by distractions, or you could be alone and intentionally being quiet. So do you have any of those, either of you?
I think for me, like I try and set some intentional alone time. So I've made that boundary with like my wife, saying, once every couple of days, I just need like an hour to myself. Whether like that's just like time to focus and actually just intentionally sit down and work out some things. Because when you're on the go all the time and you've got to bit like balance your life with someone else's life at the same time, it's very hard to do that. I think I'm lucky with like the job that I do. There's a lot of quiet time, and like while you're doing a task, it can be quite menial. So that's when I tend to, have a lot of time to think whilst doing, or listening to podcasts or learning, because I, enjoy learning, enjoy researching things and just going down the rabbit hole on those sort of things. But I guess you could kind of call that a bit like habit stacking. I don't know if you've heard of that book, Atomic Habits. I haven't read it.
Heard the book. Don't know what habit stacking
I think
is.
it's called Atomic Habits by James Clear. I haven't read it. It's one of the books I want to read, but I've just seen like videos of YouTube and people talking about, like personal help and stuff, just stacking habits on top of what you're already doing. But yeah, so for me, I guess once every couple of days, have like an hour to myself, and then I feel even like physical exercise during that time. It's like it's really a time to like get inside your own head.
Yeah. Doing exercise without music these days is probably also pretty rare. That's something you have to do intentionally as well. And you go, because it can be boring again. There's the boredom come back.
Probably also feels a lot longer.
Yeah, that's
that's me anyway. Yeah, that's like how I would utilize time.
Yeah,
for that.
And you, David, your work is
alone. So I'm pretty, I guess, I don't know, not unique, but probably somewhat again, out of the norm. I spend most of my time alone. I work alone because I work from home.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, still live with my parents, so they're around sometimes. But generally, I'm in my bedroom. Admittedly, I don't spend like a lot of alone time just sitting there doing nothing, thinking. But I spend most of my time like researching and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I used to like kill. Like I didn't, even though I think I'm an introvert. Didn't used to be quite as clear to me, and I used to, if I didn't have anything to do, I'd want to like kill time, be like, oh yeah, like what's up? Do you want to hang out? Like just
it's like an itch, eh? You just I have to fill time.
Yeah, but I think once you stop doing that, in my case anyway, and once I got to really know myself, and again for me, being an introvert, I think it really rewired my brain. Whereas now I love like being alone. I almost find it annoying to go out and socialize. Sometimes, like don't get me wrong, like stuff like this is awesome. But it's complete. It's sort of like rewired my brain. Where I don't like just going out to like hang out, do things that don't really serve a purpose. Like just, I don't know, like some people get, and I used to get enjoyment from those things, like just chilling out or whatever. It's like, I feel my brain is sort of being rewired, where it's just, I find I am so much more efficient when I'm alone and just like learning and getting things done, that I really value it. And I've seen one of those, like these quotes are always like sort of BS, but like, I've seen it out
it's
there.
It's going to be an Instagram quote.
Yeah, it's like one of those quotes where it's like, once you like spending like lots of time alone, like you like get sick of other people's bullshit or something like that. And it's like I can relate to that.
I know what you mean. I feel the same. I feel like his brain gets rewired.
Yeah.
Or maybe you just realize that oftentimes you're just filling those time. Otherwise, times that would otherwise be alone times, you're just filling them because out of habit, I guess. And then you realize that it's not so bad.
Yeah, it's something that you start when you're young.
Yeah.
And like you just want to hang out with friends all the time.
Hang out at the mall. You just walk around the mall. I couldn't think of anything.
You're not really achieving anything. And like, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. It's if you get enjoyment from that. And as I certainly used to do those things, but once I stopped doing them, I feel like my brain was rewired. When I was like, geez, I couldn't think of anything worse than just sitting down, like doing nothing. Like,
maybe it's just like a responsibility thing.
It seems like like crazy that I would have ever thought to do that.
Yeah. Oh, I think we used to do that probably like 3 or 4 times a week after school. We just go to the mall for whatever reason. So, like, sometimes you get like a feed.
Achieve nothing most of the time. Like, you just like do the same thing over and over again with no real like purpose.
Yeah, was it? We used to catch the bus to the complete opposite mall, and
because it took longer.
No, just in the hopes of like seeing people.
You're like trying to create something from nothing.
Yeah.
You're like, we'll go to like Riccarton in the hopes that there'll be something happening there.
That's good. That's cool. That's a good mindset in one respect. Just to be like,
in some ways,
just roll the dice, see what happens. That's a good.
I think that energy could have been better served doing something more productive.
And I just remember like the walk homes like in the middle of winter where it's dark and cold, just like, we could have just gone straight home and started my weekend or something. You know?
Yeah, I think that the like you're talking about rewiring, going back a little bit, could be just part of a general recognition of how short your time is. That you have I think, as you get older, you're like, oh shit, I'm like quarter way through. Yeah, you really value if I'm lucky, a quarter way through. And so the alone time, I don't know. I think it's very valuable in another respect, like. In the last couple of podcasts, we talked about like one of the antidotes, or whatever you want to call it, to like anxieties or fears or risk taking, is it always came back to getting to know yourself, and you learn ways of how you deal with it, and then how you can deal with it in the future, specific to you, that no one else, even people close to you, can explain to you. But alone time, even if you're not intentionally going to figure that out, like I'm going to learn about myself, just spending time without anything else or as minimal distractions as possible, you do just end up learning about yourself. Yeah, and I do see it. So some of it, I think, in our cases, for all three of us, it is that realization of how precious your time is and how little of it you have. But I don't think everyone comes to that realization, because again, this is where I'll throw in my
family example. I see.
The once in a podcast.
I see examples in my family of people, my siblings. So one of them in particular will contact my mum just seemingly because she's bored. Actually, so
Because he's bored.
She's like no. So my sister, so she's bored. She'll be like, "What are you doing?" Like to my mum, like on a Saturday morning, like, "What are you doing? Are you doing anything?" And then she'll be like, "Oh, I might just drop in or whatever." Like so, and like I think she really sat down. She would realize that's because she doesn't like really have anything to do like herself. Yeah,
at least she's asking and not just showing up. Though.
True that
is
and that's certainly, again, that's not unique to her. I've certainly seen that with other people I used to be friends with, some people that I'm not as close to anymore, where, it's just that killing of time. Oh, do you want to just have a smoke or something? Like, just, like, we're doing nothing, so should we meet up and have a cigarette?
I can imagine a lot of people would, their response would be like, what's so bad about going to hang out with your mum and whatnot? We're not saying there's anything wrong with it, but in terms of alone time, if you're doing that all the time, and obviously not with the same person, but if you have that attitude, if your brain's wired that way, that you just default go, you don't weigh up the options. You go, I could spend some time alone.
You don't sit there and I don't know why it is that, I don't know if that's like a societal thing or if it's, again, and I speak as an introvert, so this may be completely different if you're an extrovert. But to me, I don't understand it. Why are people not sitting there be like, geez, like I've got some free time. Like, why don't I go and learn something new? Why don't I? One thing that many people could do is, how can I like find a way to like generate some more money or something like that? But even if it's just pursuing a hobby, like why don't I pick up a guitar or like, I don't know, like there's so many things that you
just
could
growing,
do, right?
growing somehow, growing
I think that might actually come down to what it might come down to is I think most people stop growing. And perhaps that's something that's not unique to us, but is, again, perhaps we're the exceptions to the norm, where I think we're all pretty focused on still growing. I'm thinking that a lot of people that journey might stop for them pretty soon after university or high school.
Yeah, or at least in ways that we don't recognize. Like, we've stopped growing in some ways, and in some things that we just don't care about, I'm sure. Like, you don't have to always be getting better fitness wise. You can let yourself go and do some more mental stuff, but definitely it's important to at least be cognizant of a growth mindset. I think that's I mean, there's not going to be a right or wrong ultimately, objective right or wrong, but
again, if
it's whatever satisfies you.
If someone like is completely content with like their situation, they're just happy with their job, happy with their family situation, whatever it is,
coast,
and they really enjoy it, then I'm not gonna of course don't change it. But if you do have that itch, like I feel like I could be achieving more, or just say, even if it's not achieving more but just learning new things or trying new things, then I think that's an itch that you should definitely
there's
scratch.
Also I think that's going to be an innate human thing of the related to the grass is always greener thing. You go, I have this good, or at least me, it's good, but it could always be better. I could always be doing something. And then the double-edged sword of that is feeling like guilty when you don't, when you have wasted like a weekend. Like weekends are so precious once you start doing a 9 to 5, and when you feel like you've wasted it, and it's quite hard to not feel like you've wasted it, even if you've done a lot. People are quite harsh.
It's almost like a regret. Like, why? Like, I've done this probably multiple times this year. Like, have the weekend off, or like my wife would be working on, being a shift worker, and it's like, okay, cool, I've got this time to get this and this done. I'm gonna go to the gym. I'm gonna, catch up on a hobby, or even spend some time. Like, I can watch a show. I've got this time, and then it just feels like time's just passing. You've done nothing.
And that's like I mentioned before, when you're like stabbing yourself in the back. You're like in a Goggins. You're not listening to it, and repeated cycles of that will ruin your life, I reckon.
And I think that's another point. There is like, if you do have that sort of desire to be spending alone time and learning or trying new things, but you allow other people to drag you away from that. I think that's an equally big problem, is if you don't have that itch and for some reason you felt that you do need to like be pursuing things, even if you're completely content with your situation. And again, I think I see that probably in my mum, where I think she is quite happy, like just being, and she's not doing any like grand things with her time. She just really likes reading and stuff like that. And then, yeah, she will get a phone call from another sibling and she'll drop what she's doing to satisfy their needs. And then
a sibling or your siblings, her children.
Yeah, children, yeah. And then she'll be pissed off afterwards. Oh, my whole day's gone. And it's like, yeah, see, that, again, this comes back to, we've talked about it before, setting boundaries.
Yeah, so it's okay. It's fine if she's not upset at the end of the day, and she's.
But she is. So I think that's another important thing. If you do sort of have that itch to be pursuing something by yourself, and you allow, and other people are trying to take your time, it's important to set boundaries. You're like, no, this day is for me. I'll see you another day.
It's so hard to find that balance, because it's like, on one hand, you're trying not to feel like you're being cruel by saying no, where that's just probably like an inner fight. You know, it's like, well, I can say no. I have every right to say no. And also, like, for me, like, I remember having a friend he'd fill his week up. He'd have something after work every single day. Like, hey, what are you doing Tuesday? Because he's got that time free, and it's like, well, if I don't hang out with him on Tuesday, we're not going to hang out. So like, but I don't want to because I need that time to myself, or I've got something on. And so when you're balancing like your own life, other people's lives, because you still want to keep like friendships and progress, but it only gets harder as you get older.
Yeah, it's so whether it's designed or not, the lives we live are, generally speaking, super busy, like super cluttered and super busy, and a lot of it's we would rather not be doing.
And I think probably a big problem is if you don't get like taught these things from your parents, and you don't get them taught in school, which I certainly didn't get them taught in school, and I didn't get taught these sort of things by my parents either. I'm fortunate that I've sort of figured some of these, things out via the internet. But if you're not taught them and you don't find your way to them, I think, that.
Well, yeah, and I think the only way you do learn them is from alone time. Like, you can't really learn it if it's something as explicit as, like, you're going and hanging out with friends. If that is the problem, hanging out with friends is never going to give you the opportunity to be able to reflect on hanging out with friends. Yeah. You need to do that alone by definition, like. Yeah, it has to come before, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
it's like trying to look at yourself. It's like you can't, like your own eyes or something. It's like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like that can be a problem. Like if you just hang out with friends all the time because that's what you've always done, and that's like what you think is just the way that you live your life, and you may have that sort of itch, like I feel like I could be doing something better with my time, but no one has sort of like guided you to say, it's actually okay to just be like, no, I'm not hanging out today or whatever. And if you don't stumble across, like, no one gives you that advice, it can be very hard to change that, because you may never come across that advice, and then so you just wander through life, and then half your life's gone, you're like still doing the same thing, and never set that boundary and said, no, like I'm doing something else today, I'm going to the library today by myself, or whatever it may be.
I think also growing up, we had the Facebook culture, like when Facebook was coming out in high school, so it was always like gathering as many friends or acquaintances as you could, and it was like trying to just grow and grow that. Hilarious. But as time progresses, it's almost like the complete opposite. Family is important, close friends. You'll have others that you can catch up and meet up with every so often, but it's still like those are good friends. But now it's like, man, there's so many people I just couldn't care less about.
Yeah, I think it's also a generational / cultural thing in general. Like that's what everyone's goal was on Facebook, because it was all teenagers and early 20s.
Like the big goals. Like if you had 1,000 friends, like you're the man.
I wonder if kids still flex on just the quantity of friends they have on their social medias. I don't know if it's as big a deal.
I wouldn't have a clue.
Probably still is.
It's not a thing for people our age. I don't know if it's still a big thing for probably followers now. Followers like Instagram followers, TikTok followers.
Yeah, same.
Probably
kind of this. Yeah, well, it is different, but Yeah.
It feels less intimate.
But then it's
Like, if
strange
you've got a follower,
too.
it's like a parasocial relationship.
Yeah.
When it's like friends, it's like, oh, it's just like,
Yeah.
But I was thinking, for example, like in professional space, like networking is a huge thing where it's about like trying to make as many connections with people. Like kind of, I don't know if you guys have used LinkedIn or you obviously know about LinkedIn.
Sucks, man. It's
I
the
just-
most adult
it's
social
hard
media
because-
ever. It's so shit.
Yeah, leaving like studying, it was always like pushed. You need to update your LinkedIn. You need to find connections and through different companies, and there is power to networking, but I just
It's the most.
It
If you think
seems
base
so
Facebook,
fake.
yeah, if you
Yeah.
think Facebook and Instagram are fake, LinkedIn is the most fake bullshit ever.
I just hate the thing where
it's like explicitly money
Yeah.
driven as well. They're like, oh, you know everyone's doing it, and it's all like you can see through the text this
But
stupid
like a
fake
big
grin going,
pissing
hey man,
contest.
just checking in, just
It has
if
its
you got any
purposes.
business opportunities coming up or great work on the blah blah blah.
I
don't
just
know
also
you.
hate the feature where it's
Makes
like
me take an L
people can see when you've viewed their profile.
on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's like
Uh,
this person. It's like, oh,
it's like an invitation for them to hit you up.
Yep.
Hey
So,
man.
Hey, I've seen you've been lurking on my profile.
Yeah.
Did you see what I've been up to? Would you like to get involved?
And
I don't know.
I reckon
yeah.
in terms of talking about just doing things, going to the library, you mentioned going to the library by yourself. Always have big respect, although I've never done the eat food version of it, but going to the movies
Yeah.
by yourself, doing
I was-
an activity that's
Yeah.
you've always thought of as a group activity. There's no reason why you can't go on your own.
100%.
And I reckon if you just trial it, even if you're not into like meditation or anything,
I've done
going to
that.
the movies by yourself, yeah.
I think
Did
wasn't
you feel
one-
empowered? Did you feel Yas Queen empowered when you did it?
I felt like I paid way more attention to the movie.
Exactly.
But, like,
I think there's real benefits
Really?
to
Yeah.
all those alone activities. There's sort of things, yeah, again, when you're younger, you're probably like, that seems like you're a loser if you do those things by yourself. But I think, yeah, as an adult, you find, yeah, that again, those activities can actually be more, you get more from them by yourself because that's it. The concentration's there because you just completely focus on the movie. Like, there's no,
yeah.
Yeah.
thought. Even though I know you like if you're at the movie with a mate, like you're not going to be like talking all the way through. There's just certainly something. There's a part of your brain that I think just it turns off another notch.
Yeah,
that allows
yeah.
you to really hone in when there's
Yeah.
just you're not you're
really-
completely alone.
Yeah.
It's good, like, you
Monotasking,
can-
not multitasking. At all.
I enjoy it. Like I've done it a handful of times. You can eat whatever you want.
Loser.
You can eat whatever you want. Like you choose the movie. Obviously, you can watch if there's a good movie out. I think what I saw was Concussion, like the Will Smith one. Based on a true story. It was like there's paying good attention to the movie. It's just now it's I think for me it's like a monetary thing. I just don't like I could spend that or I could stay at home and watch something else on or utilize my time more efficiently.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun thing to do.
Yeah. I think it's real surprising. Movies, I think this is, for me anyway, this is only apparent when you're doing an intentional meditation or whatnot. But also, like we mentioned before, like the shower thoughts thread on Reddit, or just generally shower thoughts, even if you're not on Reddit.
Yep.
Everyone knows what you're talking about. And these revelations can just come to you while you're in the shower or intentionally meditating. But it's really honestly kind of mind-blowing how much revelation you can get, especially like one particular shower or one particular meditation. You can have more than you've ever had. You go, oh,
I
I know what I got to do, and it's not like really tangible.
I think there should probably be like a hint to most people that you get those sort of grand thoughts when you're in the shower is that maybe you should like block some more of this time out for yourself because if
You get something valuable out of it. Yeah.
so you can imagine if you spent an hour every day by yourself rather than 10 minutes in the shower.
I also wonder whether those kind of revelations or self knowledge, whatever you want to call it, revelations, can kind of get built up. I wonder if it gets built up and then it unleashes when it's given the opportunity or when your brain's put in the environment that allows it, or if it's
Possibly.
Like, I wonder if it would just trickle in if you have more alone time, if those things would trickle in, or if they'd
well, yeah,
just come all at once and then be nothing.
if you're building your life around having filling time in and always having something to do, then you probably will miss out on a lot of opportunities because you just don't have that time to be aware. But if you just keep some time, even like 10 minutes in the morning or 10 minutes in the afternoon, it's not a lot of time, but it does definitely help.
I always sort of read these stories by like people like quite successful people like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. They're like, my favorite time of the day is getting up at 5 a.m. when no one else is awake, no one in the family's awake.
So a lot of people say about who get up real early.
Yeah, and it could be the opposite. It could be staying up late because when most of the world is
when it
off.
works for you.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think there's something to that. Even if like it's not just purely about, I think in those sort of odd times, it's not just purely about being alone. I think there's also an extra sort of amplification where there's a feeling of the whole world is a way. Like, there's no traffic.
Do you think it's just
nothing?
This is like a placebo in a way, kind of a placebo where that most people are asleep, or if there is something grander at literally most people are.
I don't know if there's something to
busyness.
it, or if it's just the way you think. And at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. But
doesn't
maybe
matter.
like one way that you could flip it is that like, because everyone else is asleep, like there's all this more sort of energy in the world. That you can tap into when everyone
That's what I
else
was
is
kinda
asleep.
getting
Yeah,
at.
like
Yeah,
you
I
can think
wonder.
of it that way, whether that's BS or not. Who cares?
Yeah.
because there certainly is. There's something to that feeling.
You could be harvesting people's like dream energy.
Yeah. Like you're tapping into some sort of energy there, that like the universal energy there, and then once everyone's awake, that energy
It's gone.
dissipates because
That is
everyone's
interesting.
just using the energy. So
Yeah, that is very interesting. But ultimately, you're right. It doesn't matter.
no, as long
Yeah.
as that you get that feeling, then
Yeah.
like you can tap into that. And I know that feeling, and like again, it doesn't have to be something like you don't have to be like writing an essay or something. It's the same. So, people say about like, I think in the case with The Rock, like going to the gym, like that feeling of like everyone else is asleep and I'm like doing like the complete opposite thing. I'm like working out real hard.
Gym and the menial activity. You mentioned menial activities, but gym is one of those where you get probably the double benefit of doing something productive, like you're literally growing, and as well as
Or
being able to be
shredding.
in that, or shredding, or cutting.
And I think then there's that feeling of satisfaction after you've like already achieved something before most people have even gotten out of bed, and then that gives you another boost because you're like, look, I'm on a roll, and like I'm
It's
way
like
ahead
that
of everyone.
saying make your bed because it's the first thing you achieve in the morning. But I just had a thought. You're talking about like early rising and like The Rock getting up at 5 a.m. because when I used to work at start at 5, I would wake up at 3:30, which is like a lot of people's awful time. They said, "Why are you waking up like so early? You could just get up at 4:20, roll out of bed, and drive to work." But it's like, no, like I really valued that first half an hour because it's like I'll have a shower because I need to wake myself up. So obviously you're thinking in the shower. I used to like to check the US stock market because that's when it's open while like everyone's asleep. So it's like just having that valuable time. Whereas other people are just like, oh man, like why are you doing that to yourself? It's a horror. Like why would you want to torture yourself? But yeah, now like thankfully it's moved. So I normally start work at 7. I think I wake up at 5:45. So I don't get as much time, but it's still valuable. Even that like 10-15 minutes of just eating when I eat breakfast, thinking. A lot of people have a diary. I don't think I've got the discipline for that. But there's always value to that as well, like if you're writing your thoughts down and you're constantly checking up on yourself and what, like, are you fulfilling your goals, or are you like, when you plan out what you want to achieve, if you're not achieving it, then something needs to switch. So how do you keep track of that if you're not like disciplined and constantly checking up on yourself?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I always think about implementing. It's something that don't do enough, like writing down thoughts and stuff like that. I do it occasionally, and it's always a cathartic feeling when you
writing.
do.
Something special about writing rather than typing.
Well, in my case, I do tend to type on my
you type
laptop,
it.
but it's still better than nothing. But I've read that how people say that writing can be that pen and paper.
Writing.
But I'm not a very good handwriter. So.
Writing's another way, and that's something that is also kind of a lot. If your job doesn't necessitate any physical handwriting, then what would ever be your purpose at home?
kinda-
Maybe a shopping list, but
Yeah,
it's not
kind of
really
crazy
writing.
to
It's
think
like bullet
how
point.
little that we use that skill anymore.
Mm.
I hardly ever write on something on a.
It's lovely.
I'm more
I would
writing
describe
down
it as
like
lovely.
numbers because of like measurements and invoice numbers, etc. But yeah, like physical writing is gone off the plot.
Yeah, there might be a time come in the future where that's not taught in school at all because like everything's digital. It could get to that point. I don't know. I guess it kind of already is heading that way.
Yeah, they all have their laptops now.
Yeah.
I just remember having like the desire. I'm gonna buy like a nice brown leather like notebook.
What guy hasn't? I don't know.
Yeah.
Or maybe well, everyone.
Just have that desire. I'm gonna start writing down every day some thoughts or like how I'm feeling. You buy it. You might do it for like a day or two, and it's just a waste.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely done that before. I bought a diary for the year and
I think
never gets used.
I think there's an importance of choosing when you're going for some alone time. The physical space, for me anyway, is real important. So I can only do the meditation, or I only do the meditation once a week at the Zendo, like at a physical place with a few other people. For me, it just works way better. I couldn't think of anything worse than joining via Zoom. Like we have a camera.
Yeah, for sure.
It's just not like it's intangible again, but it's a vibe. And
I think that environment is super important as well, and it's probably one of these things where you can't like really explain why, because like in theory you should be able to like meditate anywhere or do whatever, just anything you should be able to do, but I think the environment that you're in, it plays it's something to do with the energy that you have. Certain environments,
it's a feeling. Yeah.
There's a feeling like if in a certain place that and this can also be related to like the people who are in the environment. So I find this when I have the house to myself, it's a different energy than when I have it and my parents are there. Even though my parents not bothering me, I'm in my room no matter what, and they're not really bothering me. But there's a different energy when you feel that you're truly alone.
I agree.
So
completely.
I think and that could like play out in many different ways. Yeah, certain environments. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it doesn't matter whether that's placebo or there is literal energy because the end result is your brain being kind of at peace.
For some people, I know that's a big one. Like that's it. They go and study at the library because they get shit done at the library.
Yeah.
They don't get it done at home.
Yeah.
There's something for some reason the library makes them feel like doing the work, and I can understand that. It seems relatable, even though I've never done that myself. But that just it feels like you should be doing stuff in the library. Whereas at home, you feel like I may as well just jerk off or whatever, right? So,
Well, I think it's probably my opinion. It's probably a placebo.
Yeah.
Because I do that. Like I'll go to a cafe and order a coffee and like
That's
type
another
stuff
popular
up,
one,
and it's like just that feeling. It's like, well, there are some people working here. There are some people like catching up, but I'm in an environment that like just feels more cozy.
Well, it's different at least. And
different.
Maybe you've associated the cafe with work, but also going back to the writing, I think like a simple pen and pad with the intention of gaining something from some alone time is itself an environment. Like if you think about the pen and pad as an environment is completely different to a laptop where there's the potential of all those distractions
true.
like in a physical home. There's the potential when your parents are home or someone's home that they're just going to burst in and ruin your thing.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
So
even if you had a locked door, like it would still like feel there's someone here.
there's something about
And
it.
like on the
yeah.
laptop, there's always something else that you could do at the click of a button. It's basically right there for all intents and purposes. Where I also think like your pen and pad or intentionally kind of tricking yourself. When you're like when you've had a smoke and you go and you put something in the microwave, forget about it, come back and it's done. You go, thanks, past Daniel. That was awesome. Shot for future Daniel.
That's relatable. If like if you don't have a fridge that has an ice maker filling up those stupid little ice trays.
Exactly.
Nothing worse than when those run out and you need ice. But
But then when they
if
are
you
there-
have filled it, you're like, glad that I did that.
I
20
think
seconds.
you can use that to your advantage. Where if you're gonna go, you can go for a walk. Like you can leave your house like without your phone intentionally, without any way to kind of quell any boredom that comes up, and you can kind of backstab on purpose your future self because you won't be bored for the first minute or two or three. It might hit it might hit 3 minutes into your walk, and then you don't have a phone, but your past self has already sent you away from your phone, so you can't do anything. And a walk, that's another thing about alone time. I don't know if you guys as parents are the same. They'd always just go for a walk, and I couldn't think of anything more pointless as a kid.
No, my parents.
Yeah, my
would
parents
just
do
watch
that
a
all
lot
the
of
time.
TV.
Yeah, I'd be like, I
at
couldn't
least once a day, if not twice sometimes. Yeah, they'll
Yeah.
go for walks.
couldn't understand what, and for the life of me, why you'd want to do that when there's like PlayStations at home, and especially if you're not. And then it progressed to, well, I'll go for a walk, but only if I'm going to somewhere. If there's like a destination, I'm not just going for a walk's sake. And now it's completely different. I'll just go for a walk for the intent of experiencing some alone time, and a walk. Also, I think scientifically, moving your body and walking is literally.
Yeah, I'm
changes
not a
your
big
brain.
walker, but I've read, and I truly believe that. Yeah, I read that. I've read all sorts of stuff. People say like it's a simple tip: go for a 15-minute walk in nature, and you'll feel way better about life, and you might have some good thoughts. So definitely not disputing that. Even though I don't do that often myself, I can totally understand the attraction of it.
Yeah.
I like walking. I just feel like where I live, it's just not an environment that I want to
Yeah,
walk
like
around.
it has to be away from cars, man.
Yeah,
some
well, that's
forests
the
and
thing.
something.
Like if you're walking in the suburbs, like we've got a park up the road, and you'll see some dogs and stuff there, but it's not like super inviting. For example, whereas if you drove to Hagley Park and you walked around there, or you go to like Bottle Lake Forest or up on the hills, or like
Red Zone's OP
yeah,
for
well,
that.
yeah, it's too far for me. But
That's too bad.
yeah, like that. If it was an ease of access thing, I probably would do it more. But then that doesn't stop me from like I could get up earlier and watch it, like walk in the morning. Because when I drive to work, I see, like you say, there's a lot of old people just walking early in the morning.
They're onto it, man.
They're-
They've realised a secret that no one
they're
else
tapping in.
appreciates, maybe until you
It's a
get that
boomer
old.
mentality that they
And some people might not ever realise that. But
yeah.
again, I kind of feel sorry. But again, that's just one method of alone time. And like you said, you're not in close proximity to anywhere that's truly like a lot. You're able to be alone. But you've just, like with the cafe, you've created another space where you feel alone and can allow that mental state to bubble up and ride that mental
I
state.
just had a thought. For example, like, I would never do this, but I knew someone who would go out on like a walk into nature or somewhere where there's just nobody, completely stripped naked for like five minutes.
Epic.
And just,
I'd
like,
do that.
Just
I'd be
feel, like
keen. I
feel
love
the,
getting naked.
be surrounded with nature
Mm.
and get unchained, get changed again and walk back, because it's just almost
epic.
that like freeness. There's nobody here but myself. I just could not do that because there'd be a constant thing in my head, like,
I mean,
someone's gonna see me.
from personal experience. I mean, it's kind of like effectively living in the same house, just living close to my parents, because they could turn up at any point, just as they could just burst into a room at any point. But been out many occasion on a beautiful summer's day, not fully naked just in case someone turns up, but sun in my balls and sun in my chest, like I'm just in decks and I've wedged them up. It's super peaceful, man. It's super peaceful. If not for that tiny little inkling in the back of my head that some mailman or some neighbour could come around the back. Hello, I just. But I think I'm pretty adept at pushing that stuff out and enjoying the moment.
This is sort of slightly off topic of it. There's something, it sort of comes back to environments, like that we're talking about cafes and stuff. There's something I like about sort of like, and it's not something I really get in the area that I live in, but it's something that when I move, get my own place, it's something I want. Like ambient noise. I find there's something quite
noise.
peaceful about living in a CBD, for example, if you're in an apartment and there's like people like, and going up and down the street into the pubs and stuff. Like, I don't actually want to be with them, but just that feeling of hearing them there's something I quite like about that, just hearing like activity going on. I don't know what it is, but for something I've always quite liked that. I sort of, another example of that, I think I had that when I like stayed at my sister's house in Riccarton back in the day, and like it was just much more like foot traffic going around there. And another example would be like the classic sort of example of like Tokyo or something, where it's just like hustle bustle all night long. It's like, I don't actually want to be out there, but there's just something peaceful about like being inside while there's other people doing heaps of shit. I don't know what it is.
I mean, sound can. I'm a firm believer sound can create an environment like in your head.
Yeah.
Anyone can
It's just
attest to that.
something to me that same is, I don't know what it is, that triggers something in my brain where it's like, this is awesome, mate. It's
Is it
just,
selective to certain sounds though? Because, for example, like if you're living in the city and you have that environment, but if you were living in the suburbs, and then you'd hear like lawnmowers or
yeah,
like
I think if it's
power
constant,
tools,
as long as
bang.
it's constant and
yeah, I think if it's sort of like constant, and
Like
I think
tonally
it's just
the
something
same.
about that. I don't know what I can just like envision in my head, that sort of just like foot traffic noise, like people like hustle and bustle, like
as long as
just-
it's like monotonal, like a lawnmower's fine because it's kind of a steady.
Yeah, I don't-
if it's in the background.
yeah, I don't have anything against the sound of a lawnmower, but that doesn't really do it for me. I think it's just something. Yeah,
I don't know if
like,
it does it for
Right,
anyone.
yeah.
there's just something about. I
Specifically
think just
lawnmower.
that sound of like a busy sort of CBD,
Yeah.
just like
I mean-
people out and about living their life, and you're not with them. I don't want to be with them, but just it's quite comforting to know that they're. I don't know. there's
It
just
could be a
something about
tribal
it.
human
Yeah,
evolution
maybe.
thing, like you're safe, people
Yeah.
nearby, but
and then until you
You're
hear
still
all the
kind of
sirens.
Yeah,
going
yeah,
off.
that's true. But there's something that, yeah, like I say, like a sort of like a Tokyo is sort of like the extreme example to that, and I've always been quite like drawn to that. Just like be nice to be
reckon-
that hustle and bustle.
Maybe set you a challenge of like find a YouTube video, like you get like 10 hours of
Yeah, well,
whatever.
I do sort of
See-
like I listen to ASMR all the time,
listen to-
even
fair
though
enough.
like
listen to the Corn Kid song for 10 hours
I
and
don't-
see what revelations.
I
you
don't
get.
get the like tingles from ASMR, but I just like having that, that sort of constant something,
Background.
like scratching, tapping, or even like talking, just the constant. Yeah, so I always listen to ASMR when I'm just like researching away on the computer. So I do.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
It's still not quite as good as that real experience of
Yeah.
like knowing that it's real humans.
I think I remember going through a phase where like I would set like a 10-hour flight, like the flight noise of jet
Yeah.
in the background, and just like in preparation for trying to sleep on a plane. And then I think it was maybe like a month where I was
Did it
just,
work?
it's just weird. Like when you became aware of it, like before you're going to sleep, and like this is like, why am I doing this? It's just kind of dumb. That's when I stopped. But it was interesting. Like babies will sleep with white noise, and
Yeah, I
Yeah.
sleep with a fan on as well.
fan, yeah,
yeah,
fan,
not
That's real common.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not for the, because I don't even have it blowing on me in winter, so it's not like for the cooling. Although we'll use that in summer, but just that constant noise.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's like intentional sounds and to induce like certain brainwave patterns. So I think a lot of it's like faux science on Spotify
Yeah.
and whatnot. But I think you genuinely can, and sound is just a vibration. And I think,
I think
whatever state you're getting in to allow these revelations to come through is
Yeah.
just another kind of vibration mental state.
I think the big one for me with the fan noise is also, even though it's a noise, like you say, it's that constant noise. So I think your brain can block that out. But I think it's really beneficial because then that can actually block out like non-constant noises. So like someone gets up to go to the toilet in the night. A really good example was
That's
a couple
good
of
point. Yeah,
couple of weeks ago. There was like this massive party apparently in the middle of the night on my street, and like all the neighbors woke up, but I didn't. My parents didn't because they had earplugs in, so that's their method of blocking out noise. But I didn't wake up presumably because my fan overrid the sort of hustle and bustle. But like all the neighbors like were having a congregation the next day in the morning because they
Really?
like all woke up during the night because it was like this.
having a Saturday council.
Yeah.
There was like
That's epic.
apparently this crazy party that spilled out onto the street, and I didn't hear anything. I probably would have heard that if I didn't have that fan noise that just covered up the sort of yelling and screaming and
yeah.
probably glass
You
smashing.
wake up, your windows smashed. There's like a
Well,
car
maybe
half
it's
through
a
your house.
thing.
Oh.
Like I'm just
Thanks,
visualizing
fan.
it. I don't. This is just a theory, but say you'll have different frequencies of noise, like the waves or whatever. So if you have a constant
Yeah,
frequency of like a lower frequency going, then it only leaves you to open to like the higher or middle frequencies. So yeah, maybe that's what it is. Like you've just become accustomed to
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, it could work in the opposite way of like a specific sound or binaural beat to induce, to match into your brainwaves. It could just be kind of working the opposite way where it excludes a band
yeah.
Yeah.
and then it allows you to just float around in the, whatever other band there is.
I definitely think there's something to that because before I used a fan, I would occasionally wake up if I heard like a door closing, my parents like getting up talking, and now that never happens anymore, even though those things probably still do happen. Well, they certainly do happen because they get up way before me, so there'll be doors opening and closing and chatter and even maybe vacuum cleaner going on somewhere.
I actually think
never hear it anymore.
like what you were saying, what we've been saying about an environment and having to feel safe and quiet to you, whether it's like a cafe for you, like a literal empty house. I think in living in suburbia, at least, we talked about sirens. It's kind of like that at any moment, any noise, loud noise, even if you're in your own home with no one else in it, can kind of intrude on any.
Yeah.
And like a siren will have like subconscious effects on your blood pressure. I'm
for
sure.
sure.
You
Yeah.
hear a police siren or an ambulance, depending on your own like traumas or experiences, that'll trigger you in subtle ways, or maybe more than subtle ways. But living like this, you're constantly surrounded by
Yeah, well, it's like
the possibility of something ruining your quiet space.
Yeah, I remember when like I'd
which
be
is not
living
good
at
for-
home,
not healthy.
and sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt
I'm
you
done.
there. But like you'd be living at home and you knew that your parents were out for the night,
Best feeling.
which is great. But then you might
when they
hear,
go away for a week.
but you'd hear something and you're like, oh man, like what does that sound like? There's obviously nobody here.
Oh, you
could
feel
it-
spooked.
Could it be could it be a burglar or someone
Yeah,
breaking?
yeah.
It's like, no, like the chance of that is very, very unlikely. But then it just, like you say, it intrudes on your alone time.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're trying to
That's the worst. I used to get that
paranoia.
when I was high. If I smoked weed, you get that. Oh fuck! Is that like the neighbors calling the cops or something? Like, yeah, I used to get that. Nowhere near as bad now. But when I was younger and I got high by myself, and I'd have the house to myself, and you hear just like a noise, you're like, oh shit! Like, can the neighbors smell it? Yeah,
That's crazy. I'd often have the opposite.
Oh,
I'd be
that's the worst
less
thing.
inclined to freak out. I'd be like,
Yeah,
nah,
see,
sweet as, man, it's all good.
For me,
If it's a murder, it's my time.
yeah, for me,
whatever.
weed ramps up my sort of paranoia and anxiety, and I know I'm not alone in that. It's not for everyone,
No,
but I know
I know.
that.
Yeah.
But it's nowhere near as bad now when I do smoke. I still do have more on edge than I would be, but not like to a crazy
Yeah.
extent. Like,
I mean, I think a lot of people would be able to relate to thinking about alone time using drugs,
yeah,
whether it's a nice relaxing tea. I mean, you can think of that as some people drink or wine, especially it's kind of the boomer meme for a boomer
Like a
mum
glass
to
of
have a
red
glass
wine.
of wine and have some alone time, some me time. So she's using that drug to induce that, and I think it's all part of like a ritual.
Yeah.
You
Have
can
like
ritualize.
draw a bath with like bubbles.
Yeah,
and-
which is like a ritual aspect to that.
Yeah.
And many people have different things, but I mean, drugs are often a very like literal, forceful way to get you into like a reliably forceful way to put you into a certain state. And like you
Sure.
said, I mean, you and I are completely different, I think, when talking about cannabis. So, that's another way. I think as long as you're doing it healthily, and I think everyone can tell if you're in a healthy relationship with it or not. But that's definitely shouldn't be turned down in terms of getting some alone time for
yeah, it
yourself
can
and
definitely.
self-reflecting.
Yeah, definitely.
Pick your poison.
That can enhance that alone experience.
Yeah, enhance.
And yeah, you can get some more out of it. Yeah, that's where you say have to be careful to draw boundaries, otherwise that will dissipate and it will just become like a habit, an unhealthy
you have to be
habit.
super careful.
But yeah, the occasional smoke or whatever it is by yourself can certainly you can get more out of that experience.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can liken it as well to the exercise that releases the endorphins, which is the love chemical or hormone or whatever, which is you can think of that as even as a drug, as using exercise to induce a brain state.
I think that is that runner's high or whatever is
Yeah.
that. It's a healthy form of getting high, and it's the same with the people who eat real spicy food, because that also triggers the. I'm not sure if it's either endorphins or another one, whatever. It might be in actual fact the whatever the natural painkillers are in your brain. I'm not sure. I can't. It's either
I know what you
endorphins or another.
I had
Yeah.
some spicy food this week. I mean, we won't talk about the other effects of that.
Yeah,
but like it opens up your sinuses.
Go into
Like
detail,
you almost
please.
just like I can breathe. I can think like it's clear.
Yes, yeah.
But
I'm just cognizant of in two ways. Cognizant of the people that think like all drugs are bad except alcohol and caffeine, and
Classic.
and then even people who use drugs can maybe feel a bit guilty and be like, oh, you can't use it, like weed's just for fun, like you can't use it intentionally to like better yourself, or intentionally use it to get into a a growth brain state, but you can.
Yeah.
To both
Yeah.
people, it's possible. You know,
I've also heard of people who have
don't feel guilty.
like battled with substance abuse,
Mm.
who are recovering from that, tend to find something else to fill their
Yeah.
like what they're
Another
doing. Like
addiction, yeah.
so like running would be a thing. So instead of smoking weed all the time, or like they would
cigarettes.
they would just took on like marathon running or like training for
Mm.
things like that, and it replaces it.
Yeah.
So benefits, but
Yeah.
like I mean, as an adult, if you're just doing things in moderation, we'll have different worldviews, but
Yeah.
equally, if someone's doing something that I don't agree with, as long as they're doing it on their
Yeah,
own time,
what
and it's
right
not
does a
affecting me.
government have to tell you what you can and can't do with your own consciousness?
But different if you were like, I mean, I just had a thing, where you'd walk past like a bus stop or outside a mall. Like, it's okay. Yeah. I hate the smell of secondhand smoke when people are doing it outside, but equally it's like, well, where else are they going to do it? Like,
Yeah.
as long as
true.
they're not blowing it in your face intentionally, it's
Yeah.
like,
It's like you can't outlaw dickheadedness. Like you can't stop people being dicks.
no, you have to have a lot of like certain tolerance just for whatever, like if people want to do their own things, like people might hate what you do, but you do have to tolerate things. You can't just be like a Karen all the time and complain. Like you just get on with it.
Yeah, I think also relating to that, you kind of cultivating your own little alone space at all times. There's this thing in Zen where they encourage you to, I might have mentioned this before, encourage you to, like the whole point of it is not to just come once a week and do that. You're like learning what that state of mind is like, to be able to bring it into everyday life. And that state of mind is obviously very alone time. It's literally, you're only with your thoughts and you've got your eyes closed or pretty much closed. And so, like you're saying, dealing with other people, with the example of secondhand smoke, is an example of using that alone time mindset, bringing it and carrying it with you with everything you do.
Yeah.
I think it's really important.
Well, it's similar, I guess, like if you're going to church, for example, it's not necessarily just you go once a week. It's like realistically, if you're following, like spiritually, then you would be carrying that into your everyday life, and it would be part of like what you do all the
it's
time.
same thing. Yeah.
It's like you're actually living it out.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing worse than prescribing to a mindset and just it feels like you're just fake. You're doing it once.
Yeah.
Like the whole thing, like treating others how you want to be treated. Well, it's like you've got to take that into everyday life. Like if someone pisses you off or offends you, something you like secondhand smoke, it's like, well, I could use my energy like being pissed off and go after them and say something, or just get on with it. It's like let them don't let it affect you.
Yeah, like you said as well, treating others, the age-old quote that your parents, the cereal box wisdom of treat others how you want to be treated, the golden rule. You don't know how you want to be treated unless you have alone time and spend time with yourself to figure out how you want to be treated first, so then you can figure out how you treat others,
Yeah.
Like you have to, there's no other way to learn.
So I just remember, it made me think,
yourself.
I went to a restaurant and the waitress there like welcomed you to your table, being like super friendly. Like, obviously she's trying, but it felt like it was just too intense. It's like, hey, have a seat at this table. It's like, well, there's nobody here. Like, I just want to sit. I was fine my
no
own
one
seat.
else
Yes,
there.
like no one there. Like, why are you pointing me to this table and then come in? Like, as soon as you're finished, like clear your plate. And it's like, just slow down.
You're stressing me out.
Yeah, well, it's like she's obviously just trying her best. But if I get annoyed, like, what, let it.
What are you
get
going
to
to
me.
say? Can you stop?
Yeah,
can
can
you
you
do
stop
worse? Can you do your
being-
job worse?
Yeah. Can you leave me leave us alone, give us some time? It's like, well, she's just trying,
Yeah.
like good on her, but also
Yeah.
oh well,
It's important.
chalk it off to a somewhat annoying experience, still come back.
Yeah.
This was the food. The food was more important than what else was going on.
Yeah, exactly. And like another way of putting it, I think for like fully like scientifically minded people when talking about bringing the Zen mind into your rest of your life, or like you mentioned, Nav, with church. Like, what did you say? What were you saying about that? Like a mindset that you get from going to church and then bringing that into the rest of your life. Is that kind of what you're saying? Or did I just...
Yeah.
overlay
Well,
what
yeah.
you're
Like
saying?
if you're going once a week, like we're told like church isn't about like the building or going to, you can do that in small groups or meet up wherever. But there's an intent, like having that intention of going. It's like a discipline. But then if you're only doing that once a week, and then you go out into like the community and you're acting like an ass, or not treating people nicely, or like you're just showing up once, it's kind of fake. Like you've kind of got to let it.
You're not supposed to leave it at the door.
Yeah, leave it at the door. Like
Yeah.
you take it with you, and then that would be the idea is that when you encounter like other people in everyday life, it's like, well, then if what you've learned or picked up on, it's like you would take that. And if it's like a teaching or how to like interact or be nice to others, it's like, well, if you do that at church when you see the people and then you meet someone on the street and you have a bad encounter or you want to flip them off, it's like, well, you're not actually.
Yeah, well, that's
going
good.
on, yeah.
I was going to say, just
I don't know if that makes
as a
sense.
translation, that makes complete sense. And maybe people who aren't so fussed about the whole spirituality, you could explain it the exact same thing scientifically, in that like you're trying to just rewire your brain when you go into Zen or church, you're you're in that brain state of that maybe alone, might feel like alone time, and you're trying to bring that out to the rest of your life outside of the environment that it was in, and you're going to do that by physically, literally changing your brain. When you're talking about if you're going to be just more mindful, that's being more mindful is just a different brain chemistry.
I also just think it's
It
not
underlies
a
it.
good idea to just remain living in like a sheltered, or I don't know what's the word, like an echo chamber. If you're just in the same environment all the time and it becomes comfortable, like you do have to. I think you need to expose yourself to different ideas and different thoughts and
Gotta
different
test-
people. Yeah,
test
because it's
yourself.
just test. Otherwise, you just go through the motions.
Mm.
Like you need to have a bit of whatever.
Yeah, you got to test yourself, and that's like a growth
I think-
mindset thing.
Yeah, that's really
maybe-
important when it comes to politics, because I used to fall like victim to that. Whereas again, I'm always still going to be biased to like the political beliefs that I swing towards, but I'm sort of smart enough to realize that political philosophy is not perfect, because that wouldn't make sense, would it? Like this one side is perfectly right and the other side's completely wrong. Like
Yeah.
it's clearly not.
And
that
you're the
black
only one
and
that's
white.
clicked onto it.
Yeah, well, not or just everyone in that group, everyone on
Yeah.
that side is this political doctrine is 100% correct. No, like it's just not that way, is it? But I think most people fall victim to that. We're like, yeah, this is the party or whatever belief system I subscribe to, and they're right, 100% right. These guys are 100% wrong. Whereas like, no, it's far more nuanced than that. I think these guys are closer to being. They're more right than wrong.
Do you
But these guys are right. The
do you
other
think-
side's right about some things as well.
Do you think the people? Sorry, do you think
No,
the people
that's fine.
that do think that, when they're like fully committed to a political party, or I don't know, anything, a streamer or whatever, a gaming streamer, those people could be maybe in general spend less time, alone time, learning about themselves. They could just maybe it's
Probably.
easier to be more manipulated or
Yeah.
to go fully
group
in.
thing, yeah.
when you
'cause
don't spend more time
that's
individually.
yeah, I think that's one of the things with like group think is
You don't want to be like that. No one wants to be a group thinker.
yeah, for the most part, unless you're in like a sort of specific group who has that sort of intention, like we're gonna sit down and like analyze these things.
Yeah, like a meta group.
Yeah,
think.
yeah. Unless you're
That's
in
not-
that sort of group, then if you're just in like a
You're the
traditional,
Andrew Tate fan club.
yeah.
you go
The
into
war
that
room, man.
sort
It's
of
called the war room, all right?
yeah, tribal mentality where you just it's like us versus them, and it's like real easy to just sort of
Lose
like,
yourself. That's what people say. Lose
and
yourself.
you're like just like everything becomes simplified, like us versus them. We're right, they're
Yeah.
wrong. Where it's like far more nuance than that.
Yeah, well, I was thinking like it's like having dogma or like two different codes of work or behavior or whatever, conduct, like completely opposite. But then you have like the faith or the hope aspect where it's like we all just want to go forward as a society. So you'll have different thoughts and different whatever, but equally you're sharing like a common goal.
Yeah, I think
So, you can't go down like if you spend too much time in one thought pattern or hanging out with the same people, then it's clouding yourself.
I think like the key thing with like politics is that this like side that you subscribe to is like you've come to that sort of side through your life experiences, and someone else's life experiences are completely different. And this is where I used to be quite blinded by this, but I think I'm certainly aware of it, even though I still can easily like disregard that. Yeah, like I believe what I believe because my life has panned out a certain way. But I can now get my head around how someone who's had a much different life experience would think that the political beliefs that I think are right or close to right are wrong, and the things that they believe in is right because they've had a completely different life experience.
You know what you mean? I wonder if the like homogenization of culture has implications for that then, because more and more people's lives are more or less the same.
True.
In our country at least, like separated by countries. But
I think, and like not to again like oversimplify it, but I think if you're like fortunate enough that whether it be through brains or luck or a combination of both or whatever, that have leading quite a successful life, you just be thankful like that the situation, whatever it is, that of the circumstances have combined to create a good life, and just be like thankful that is the way, because it's not that way for everyone, and not everyone can be that way. It's sort of like, this is what I looked into. This is sort of like whatever the political sort of like doctrine or that we live in at the moment is, neoliberalism is what it's called, and that all like started back in like the 80s or something, when with Reagan and stuff, and filtered through to New Zealand. And so our society it's very rewarding if you're a combination of very smart and can implement your knowledge. So if you're like a guy like Elon Musk or whoever it is, you're a good businessman. It's a great society in New Zealand. This goes for New Zealand and America. It's like a great society to live in. But if you're just like if you're like below average IQ and don't really have any great knowledge or anything, it's pretty average society. Because it's not, I don't think it's terrible, but it's not great. But so that's what I mean. If you have the sort of like knowledge or whatever to be a great businessman, or even just have a really well-paying job, like be thankful that the society is rewarding to you. It's sort of it's slant, like the rules are sort of slanted towards you.
Yeah, your
towards,
type.
Yeah. So like, type. And that of course you're still going to want things to stay that way, right? You're not wanting them to change because it rewards you.
Yeah.
But be sort of like have that awareness that that other people who aren't fortunate enough to be intelligent or whatever, you can understand why they think about things differently, even if you still don't want like their rules to be implemented yet.
Yeah, keeping awareness, I think you mentioned, is key. Awareness, gratitude are the keys, and awareness you only get from reflecting on yourself and having alone time.
And experiences of whatever.
Yeah, but
like
to appreciate what you've got, you need to look at your life like objectively and self-reflect, which comes from alone time, quiet time, whatever you want to call it. So I think it's, as an antidote, quiet time, alone time, intentional or not, preferably intentional, I'd suppose, could be antidotes to groupthink, everything bad. It's not selfish, like we mentioned before. It's not selfish to spend alone time, and that example of that's probably not explicit just to you, but like a mum who is too open and helps everyone else, and then goes, I'm so stressed, I don't have time for myself.
And I think that
it's not selfish, and they think it probably is selfish.
And I think it's a problem is that's probably what they were taught by their mum, who had some toxic worldview, or their parents, not just specifically their mum, but their mum and their father, who would have had like some toxic worldview because their parents had, and it just gets passed down. And unless someone breaks that cycle, which I think in my case, fortunate enough that the internet is the key.
Yeah.
I've used the internet since a young age, and my brain is wired towards like using the internet, and even still, though, fortunate enough, I guess, that through dumb luck that I stumbled across like the right people on the internet, and then one thing led to another, and you just continue learning.
Thank the algorithms. They're the real ones to thank.
Yeah.
Thank you, algorithm.
Because that's it. Not everyone stumbles across that, and then if their parents haven't taught them that, then they're just going to do what their parents did. And again, it's just these toxic, like habits,
intergenerational trauma. And
Join us for episode 8 when we figure out if the algorithm knows us better than we know ourselves.
yeah. That's how it's going. I think we've passed the glory days of algorithms, but that is another podcast.
Yeah.
No, that was just a joke.
I know. I'm keen. I can be keen.
But yeah, I think I see that in my parents. Like, I see like a lot of their sort of, I don't know, shortcomings is the right word, but a lot of their like less than desirable traits or habits or whatever, even if it's like towards themselves, the way that they like treat themselves, would have been because of what their parents taught them, and their parents would have had very toxic worldviews, and for a lot of things, like they sort of you sort of have to bend over backwards for other people, or you're a selfish like douchebag. Like when that's not the case at all. No,
it's not, and it's freeing. Again, it feels freeing. Oh well, I think that's a pretty classic. That's a classic Friday council. David's family will feel somewhat roasted. I try. I'm pretty like, I don't have much of a filter, so like I say like a lot of these things to them as well. It's not like I'm talking shit behind them, and I try and like almost like counsel them. I like try and help them and see things in a different way, and I think in some cases I do that, but some things are too deeply ingrained. There'll be a lot more similarities between parents or our parents and whatnot than, like your parents won't be alone. My parents are much the same in many ways, and I think that's where the benefit of this comes from, and with each other as well. Just talking feels like counsel, and you realize that you're not so different, and people have shared very similar experiences, especially as the machine homogenizes everything.
Well, it just makes me think of that saying, if you're 1 in a million, well, you're still the same as how many other people.
Still shit.
still, yes.
You can look at things, both either way.
Sorry to just get back to this, but I see my parents, especially my mum's time being stolen from her and her getting stressed about it, I try and say, like, you need to say no. And she's like, yeah, you're right. But then it overrides her because of a lifetime, 60, 70 years of doing that, bending over backwards for other people, overrules me telling her that actually, no, it's okay to say no. And she's like, next time I won't do it.
It's a place of love. Well, that's sweet.
Maybe
we're lucky to have people like that.
You might just have to cut that out. It's like, well, I've tried my best. It's up to her,
that's it. Like, that's it. You sort of have to come to it. It's futile, because then it becomes stressful for you, where you're like, you're trying to help them, and then you're getting nowhere.
She's stealing your time trying to.
It's just like you just have to say, like, would be thankful that I see the world in a different way. I can't change.
If that becomes the case, you're kind of stealing your own time. If you start stressing about them giving away their time.
Exactly. That's what I try and say. Like, I'm just thankful that I can control my life, and
it's too many thieves of time.
Everyone wants your time.
People and things.
We apologize for thieving your time listening to this.
That's a good amount of time.
Yeah, maybe we should just cut it there.
That's good.
I think that's been fun.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us.
Peace out.
We'll see you for the next episode.
Thanks, guys.